Future Now Show. Brought to you by the Club of Amsterdam.
Hey Futurists, it's me, Miss Metaverse, and welcome to the Future Now Show brought to you by the Club of Amsterdam. We have a great show for you today. Joining us from New York is futurist and founder of Serious Wonder, Gray Scott. Hi Gray, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. And also joining us today is futurist and CEO of Fast Future Research, Rohit Talwar. Hi Rohit.
Hi there.
Thank you for joining us today. So today we are going to be discussing the future of business. So Gray, can you please tell us just a quick overview of what you feel about the future of business?
Well, it's interesting because what I really want to talk about today is the idea of digitization and digitizing our world. That's actually what's happening around us. Every time we pick up a phone and we take a selfie, every time we take a picture of our vacation, any of those experiences, we are digitizing that. And most people don't really think about what happens to that information when they're offline. But that information lives on forever. Whether it's in a cloud or whether it's stored in your personal server, that information still exists even when you're offline. And so I think where we're headed is a scenario that looks like a simulated virtual reality, right? And if that crunches, as I think it will in the future, more and more people get online, more and more people digitize their experiences, we're looking at a future that is a simulated singularity, where everything is a virtual reality. Now, the idea, how this sort of ties in with business is there are going to be lots of businesses that are going to spring from that idea, right? So you have to imagine, if you look at people today with Oculus Rift headsets on their heads, who's going to take care of the people that are using those devices as much as they use their cell phones today? Think about that, right? Mm-hmm. There are going to be care centers, believe it or not. There are going to be care centers where people will check themselves in because they want to spend 8 hours with this headset on, if we go in that direction. Now, I'm not saying that that is where we have to go. I'm just saying that it appears from the technologies that are coming out that tends to be where people want to go. And so I think that's an interesting way of sort of digesting how we are digitizing the future.
Correct, you're absolutely right. Everything is changing. Just as we've been growing up and seeing how even our regular cameras have changed our lives, and everything is compact, everything's with us all the time. We're 24/7 online, and that's just a lifestyle change, and it's definitely affecting the way that we do business around the world. So Rohit, how do you feel about this digitization and the future of business?
Well, what we see is in a sense, taking what Gray's just talked about, there are actually two different planets here colliding. On the one hand, you have the planet of people who are born digital, the companies that are born digital. They think digitally, they see everything as data, they see every problem as being something you can solve with the right algorithm. So whether it's connecting us globally over Google Hangouts, or patient care, or feeding humanity, they see it all now as very much a technological problem that they can solve. They think totally differently. That planet is then colliding with the planet of people who, if you like, were born physical. To them, technology was something you used to update your accounting systems. It was how you did things, but it wasn't your business. And there's a totally different mindset, and the two are really colliding now. The second thing that's going on is there's an accelerating pace of innovation in technology. So whether it's artificial intelligence, blockchain technology, crowd-based platforms, the idea of us simulating the brain and replicating it online, connecting our brains together. This stuff is happening at a pace that the people from the physical world just don't get. The third thing that's happening is we're moving to a point of abundance where we're saying, actually, telephony's free now with Skype or Google Hangouts. 3D printing could make manufacturing effectively free. We're moving to the point where we're going to be really challenged as businesses to work out how we make money. So all of these forces are coming together to really challenge why we're in business, what is a business for, what's its role, how does it make money, how many people will it employ if technology will replace many of the roles, where is the money going to come from the people who've been replaced, how are they going to buy goods and services. So all of these things are being challenged now, and over the next 5 to 10 years, business is going to have to grapple with every single one of those And at the same time, humanity is going to be saying, well, how fast and how far do we want the technology to evolve? Just because it can do something, do we naturally let it do that? Do we let artificial intelligence become smarter than humans? Do we let robots take over? And so we've got some really fundamental issues rising up for business to really address. And these are some of the things that are being covered in the book that Gray and I are both contributing to that comes out next month.
Great, excellent. So, Gray, tell me, which three emerging technologies do you think will be the most beneficial to businesses in the near future?
Well, it's interesting. I do agree that 3D printing is going to be fundamental to decentralizing technology or decentralizing commerce. So, for example, the easiest way to think about this is if your community gets a 3D printer that is capable of printing a 3D printer, think about what that's going to do. I mean, you don't have to continually order new 3D printers. You just give the next printer to another community, and that community prints another 3D printer, and so on and so forth. And you've immediately decentralized, really, the economy at that point. You've decentralized the ability to make your tools. If we get to the point where we can print food, then you've decentralized certain foods. So 3D printing for sure. The idea of 3D scanning your environment and the Web 3.0 is very fascinating to me. So, and what I mean by that is, imagine right now, when you go to the internet, you're calling up a URL, right? You're typing in on a keyboard, and it's a flat surface you're looking at. And these are pages that are being called up. And so when I come to your website, I'm looking at a page that's being projected on my screen. But that's not the future of the web. The future of the web is virtual. So in the future, you will scan your environment, you'll scan your store, you'll scan your face and your body, and those things will become artificially intelligent, soft AI. And when someone visits your site, they're visiting a virtual reality space. They can walk through your store, they can see a 3D version of who you are, they can sit down with you face to face, have a conversation, and you don't have to be online for that. That happens offline while you're laying on the beach or wherever you are. And then when you log on to the Web 3.0, you are seeing what was recorded when that person came to visit you, because that person is also 3D scanned in a three-dimensional space. So 3D scanning, 3D printing, I think simulation, the idea of simulating these worlds and experimenting with future scenarios within those simulations, I think is going to be huge for businesses as well. So, I mean, the airlines use simulations all the time. Doctors use simulations. Scientists are using simulations all the time, and they've become much more advanced and more sophisticated. And it's only going to continue so, especially if the internet becomes a virtual workspace.
That's excellent. I can actually see it when you're describing it, and it's very exciting, a very exciting future indeed. So Rohit, now how do you feel about these emerging technologies and how they may affect business in the future as well?
Well, I can see three big clusters of technologies that are really going to change our world. The first is around the human being. So we've talked about 3D printing. We'll be able to print limbs. You already have people today who have multiple replacement legs, so they can decide what height they're going to be each day. We'll be in a position where we can genetically alter our bodies. There are technologies coming that will enable us to change our skin color, the thickness of our hair, the appearance of our faces. And we'll also be able to enhance our brains with a variety of what are called nootropic drugs and electronic enhancement. So there's one set of technologies that will change what it means to be fundamentally human. The second is artificial intelligence. We are developing machines that are becoming increasingly smart, where it will be harder and harder to tell the difference between a human and a machine. And within the next 5, 10, 20 years, no one really knows exactly when, we're probably going to reach the point where we have intelligence that's as smart or smarter than humans, which really raises all sorts of interesting possibilities. When we have a being smarter than us around us, what will they do? Will they reinvent economics? Will they reinvent how we govern? Will they reinvent science? We really don't know what happens when we create something that's actually smarter than us, because we're not smart enough to work out what it would look like. And then the third one, I think, is this whole area of new materials and smart materials, where we're engineering materials that have memory, engineering materials that can change their shape and property over time, engineering, the fabric of society in a totally different way, so that our physical environment will actually become a living, breathing, intelligent space in which we exist, and will adapt to the people within it. So those three, I think, together are going to, adding to what Gray's already talked about, are going to represent some really fundamental transformations for our world.
Absolutely. It's very exciting. It's just everything is changing so fast and it's so hard for us to keep up. What advice, very quickly, we don't have much time left, so what quick advice would you give businesses today concerning of how can they keep up with this accelerating change? What should they know right now about the future of business?
Okay, staying with me. Well, I think the first thing I would say is you've really got to make sure that you have people inside your organization who are looking at 3 different time horizons. One is what could change in the world around us in the next year. The second is a group who are looking 1 to 3 years out. And the third is a group who are looking 4 years plus. And you need to have different people really understanding how fundamentally things could change. And really almost thinking conceptually differently about the nature of your organization over those time frames. The second thing is you have to build the ability to look at the future and deal with uncertainty into the management training of everyone in your organization. You can't just leave it to a few people. And the third is a real willingness to experiment, to try new ideas, to try them quickly, to acknowledge that you need to unleash the younger people inside the organization who aren't scared of these ideas, rather than having endless committees and meetings and reports to discuss every single possibility. We've got to really see our organizations tomorrow as platforms of experimentation rather than this fixed entity that's trying to navigate into the future.
Right. Well, Gray, how do you feel about this? Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
Well, I do. I think one of the interesting things about this is that when we think of the future of business, we have to rethink the paradigm of business itself. Business of the future will not look like it looks today. I mean, especially if we're talking about some sort of Star Trek future, which I think is where we're headed, we're not looking at a situation where you go to work 9 to 5 every day. We're not looking at a situation where one unit equals an exchange versus another unit. The monetary system will look different. The way that, I mean, you look at Bitcoin, it's the same thing. These things are changing the paradigm of work. But I think one of the main things is I like the idea that Google uses where they set aside a specific amount of their resources to fail quickly, right? So the businesses have to be experimental, and that within that ecosystem, they've sort of partitioned that off so they can go and experiment and learn from their failures. And that gets used within the business. The ecosystem doesn't, it benefits the ecosystem for even when it fails. And so I think that's important for businesses to understand. And then finally, I think, and I've said this many times, that the future is not about money. The future is not about money. The future, and we're seeing that all around the world. All of the corrupt governments are being exposed because we all have cell phones with cameras now. You know, what you're seeing in the United States with people videotaping these horrific acts that are happening with the police in the United States. The future is going to be the same way for business. The future of 3D printers being able to print anything we want, that means that we are decentralizing our technologies and our economies, basically. And so at a certain point, businesses have to rethink what it means to do business. Does it mean I want to make money, or does it mean I want to improve the lives of 1 billion people? That's an entirely different way of thinking, and I think if businesses can start to skew in that direction, those are the ones that are going to survive.
That's great information. Thank you for sharing that. All right, well, unfortunately, we're going to have to go. It was so great speaking with the both of you today. And where can we learn more information about you, Rohit? I'd like to go with you first.
Sure. You can see our website, which is fastfuture.com. And the website for the book on the future of business is fastfuturepublishing.com. Okay,
great. And how about you, Gray?
So you can see my work on grayscott.com, or you can read our magazine, which is called seriouswonder.com as well, for the latest emerging technologies.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We had a great show. So excited. And let's go build a better future. Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Bye-bye.
Bye.